Originally from Raleigh. For an old guy, I'm a rare bird. I'm a native of Raleigh. Live in Clayton now.
What got you into the military?
Well, at the time I went through school, I figured I was going to be going to Vietnam one way or another, so I may as well fly. That's what I wanted to do. So I went through the ROTC program at NC State, the flight program, learned to fly, and as my uncle told me, he was a retired military guy, that's a ticket to Vietnam. And I said, well, okay, but I like to fly.
When did you go into the service?
Active duty, well, I was commissioned in '66 when I graduated from NC State, but I actually went on active duty in June of '67.
What was going into Vietnam like for you, telling your family and everything else?
Well, I think later I probably appreciated better how my mother and father felt when I went to Vietnam than I did at that time. You know, I figured, well, I'm young and invincible and what can happen? And didn't have the same appreciation for how they felt as I did later.
What did they tell you?
You really want to do this? And I said, yes. Well, I was either going to do that or be a dump truck platoon leader in Vietnam. I was in the Corps of Engineers, and either that or a bulldozer platoon leader or something. But you know, again, flying was what I wanted to do.
So you flew, I can speak today. You flew Hueys.
I did. Of course, that was something we transitioned into at the tail end of flight school. And even though 5 of us were sent from flight school to Fort Bragg, and we were transitioned or qualified in the Loach, the little egg-shaped light observation helicopter. And of the 5 of us, only 1 ended up flying them in Vietnam, and I did not. I ended up flying Hueys.
Were you a troop carrier or what kind of?
It was a utility helicopter, the standard Huey, which is for troop insertions, troop extractions, medical evacuations, and resupply, maybe command and control under certain circumstances. But it was the utility helicopter of the day, which is what the Black Hawk is now.
What was it like over there for you? What was your normal day like?
Busy. It's being in an assault helicopter company, and I was a platoon leader after a while. It was a busy day, 7 days a week. In a sense, time went fast. It went quickly. The months, weeks and months, because it was a 7-day-a-week type job. And some of the days, and I flew as much as I could. Not quite like some of the warrant officer pilots, but as much as I could. And these were anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 to 14-hour flying days. But then one of my tasks was to keep track of each of the pilots in the platoon's 30-day running total or average, if you would, of flight hours. So I had to kind of keep track of that and making assignments for the next day.
So what was your rank? What was your actual rank there?
I was promoted probably after about a month and a half to captain in an assault helicopter company. The major was the company commander, and captains were platoon leaders.
What were some of the hard times for you when you were in Vietnam?
Well, I don't know. You remember the good times. You don't remember the bad times.
What were some good times then?
Well, some of the good times perhaps were taking visitors around. We actually flew, the time I was there, our company supported a Korean division. And we actually took some of the young ladies from Korea in their native dress, traditional dress if you would, around to the units, Korean units, these little hilltop outposts and so forth. So that was an interesting time too. That's one that particularly comes to mind.
What was it like communicating back home?
Well, unlike today, where you could pick up a cell phone and call back home, back then you could use what's called MARS system to make a radio call. I actually never did because we had to go from our unit area quite a ways to get to a station like that. But letters were common. We generally would send a letter and receive a letter almost on a daily basis.
What was it like seeing that Raleigh, North Carolina dress come to you and you get that?
Yeah, that's right.
What did that mean to you when you see that over there? in
Well, it
Vietnam?
means a lot. I mean, in a way, if you fail to get that, it's you begin to wonder, well, what's going on here. But, so it was part of your day that meant a lot.
Any stories that, any letters that stick out in your head that you exchange with your family that?
Not really, even though I mean, unfortunately, I heard of others that got Dear John letters, and that was pretty upsetting to the individuals, and you could understand that because you were a long ways from home, and but in our unit, we were so busy all the time. I think, in my observation, a lot of the people that got into trouble, be it drugs or other issues, were ones that had a lot of time on their hands. They weren't flying every day. They weren't the flying crew, so to speak.
What do you try to make sure everyone understands when you tell a story about Vietnam? What do you want people that are asking, especially young people today?
Yeah.
What is it that message you really want to get across to what that was like?
Well, I think with us displaying the aircraft, for example, it gives them a sense of what was our equipment like. Many people that come and look at the aircraft have never been up close to one. And they, interestingly enough, will say, gosh, it's a lot bigger than I thought it would be, or interesting, conversely, it's a lot smaller than I thought it would be. And some people actually don't want to get in it that may have been over there. So it gives a little bit of, I guess, reality to our what we were involved in over there. And some people say, well, that's pretty primitive, but it was a tool of the day, and it's what we had to do our job with.
What was coming home like for you?
Oh, it was great. I can tell one story. I remember some of my friends over there were celebrating my leaving, I guess, being able to leave. And we probably drank a little too much that night, bouncing around in we call them hooches, our room. Never went to sleep, but knowing I had to catch that plane, again, we were somewhat remote, catch a ride on another helicopter at 7 in the morning. And so I made sure that we were going to be on that flight. And so it was a good feeling. But, you know, interestingly, too, it was a little bit of a guilt trip because we were leaving our friends behind. I was an individual replacement. We didn't go and come as a unit, as many of them do now on deployments. I was an individual replacement. Got over there by myself, came back by myself. So there was a guilt feeling that, you know, maybe I should have stayed.
It was like being back on North Carolina soil for the first time after that.
Oh, it was nice.
What was
Yeah.
the first thing you did?
Oh boy, ate ice cream. I remember that was one thing I did. I didn't get ice cream the whole year. And we were actually, our unit was a little bit unique. We were on the corner of a Korean compound in Vietnam, and a lot of people don't even know the Koreans were there. But it wasn't like being on an American compound where you could go somewhere close by and get a hamburger. So to stop off at an Air Force base, if we were doing a resupply mission nearby and got ahead of the riggers, we did all our resupply with sling loads underneath. To be able to stop and get a hamburger for lunch was a big treat for us. And,
what do you get out of coming in, seeing these faces of the people as they learn about your choppers and just about Vietnam?
well, I think to me, it's the ability to educate them or give them some appreciation of what our situation was, and maybe even the situation for the more recent troops, younger troops going off and fighting somewhere. Even though things are a little different, certainly, but it's not so different that, you know, we'll give them some appreciation of that.